Mark Skaar for 103.7 The Fox. Proud to talk with Brad Gillis from Night Ranger. Hello, sir. Welcome.
How are you, Mark? What's going on out there in your area?
It's getting hot.
There you go. Been having that same issue in California here, but we're getting through it all, and looking forward to getting back on the road here soon.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to having you at the historic Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake. I'm sure you know about the history of that venue, and I would assume that you're looking forward to coming to play for us.
Yeah, I know the history about it, and we're getting back on the road. We've got quite a few great shows coming up, and looking forward to get back.
Congratulations on 40 years as a band. That's an amazing milestone.
Yeah, the crazy thing is I'm only 45, so I don't know how that figures.
Right? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's been great. We had a long, great career, and to still be together with the band out there gigging and doing records, I tell you, man, I count my lucky stars for that.
You call them records, as do I. And speaking of which, you have a new one coming out next month. It's called A.T.B.P.O. It stands for The Band Played On. I got a chance to listen to it this morning, and it's another great rock and roller.
Oh, thanks, Mark. The whole recording process was a little different, for the band, being as, going through the COVID situation in the last 16 months. Towards the end of last year, we decided to get in and do another record and try to see if we could pull it off. So we started out doing Zoom calls and getting ideas together. And then once we kind of knew the songs what we were going to record, we had Kelly, our drummer, go into his area in Arizona, go into a studio and record the drums. Once we had those finished, we passed them along to everybody who has their own home studios, and we all just put our parts together, and it was done a whole different process, but the outcome turned out pretty good.
Do you typically, Brad, record together?
Oh, yeah. We usually would get up to Jack Blaze's house when he lived here in California and spend a couple months just putting everything down. Now, I didn't live far from him. Our keyboard player, Eric, didn't live far, and Kerry Kelly, the guitar player, would fly up from Orange County to the Bay Area, and Kelly Kagi, our drummer, would fly in, and we just sit up at Jack's for a couple of months and do records, which was great. But we tried something different, and it worked out okay. It was a lot better than being dead in the water and just sitting around waiting for things to open up. So the great thing is we have a new product coming out during a COVID situation.
Talking to Brad Gillis from Night Ranger about the new record, and I wanted to highlight a couple tracks that we've heard. The first one that came out was called Breakout. Tell me about that song.
Well, I'll tell you, man, that's kind of a barn burner. We tried to go back to the roots of Night Ranger, which is those two-part guitar harmonies and, big anthem chorus vocals, and we just wanted to come out of the box kicking butt. So that's how that came about and ended up. And I was looking on YouTube, and we had over 250,000 hits on it in a couple weeks. So people are hearing about it, and we're going to try to incorporate the two first singles in our live show, by doing Breakout and another one's called Baby, Baby, Baby. Bring it all home to me.
Right.
Those are the two videos that are out, and we're going to try to incorporate those in the set and start playing some new stuff live along with our old hits and other songs that we throw into our set.
Well, with 12 or 13 records out, Brad, you have a lot to pick from. It's got to be hard to kind of whittle it down.
Well, Mark, I tell you stick with the big hits, which you always play live.
Sure. And
then you reach into the B cuts and kind of change them around, especially if you've been to the same city a year or two before, just to give the fans something a little different. And then, of course, we throw in a couple Damn Yankees songs that Jack was involved with. And since I, played with Ozzy back in the day in the early 80s, we throw Crazy Train in there. And our other guitar player, Kerry Kelly, spent about 8 years with Alice Cooper.
Yep.
So we throw Schools out in there, too. So we just try to keep things moving, songs people recognize, and try to, come up with a great set to keep the fans engaged.
Talking to Brad Gillis from Night Ranger. Night Ranger coming to the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake Friday, July 9th. And I wanted to talk to you about the Whammy Bar. It's kind of been your calling card. Where did all that start? You're kind of, I think a lot of your identity, obviously you're a melodic player, but you always incorporated that. It's kind of become your trademark.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how that came about, Mark. In 1978 when Van Halen came out, he was doing that whole Floyd Rose Whammy Bar thing and throwing that into the songs, and I really enjoyed how, being a guitar player, this new tremolo system coming out that was locking, so when you used it, you wouldn't go out of tune. So after receiving my red Strat that I've been playing for decades, sanded down in a box from a friend of my brother's in 1978, I started throwing it all together and took some leftover Emron paint from my Dobson 240Z, which was like an orange-red color, and painted the body with that. And then I wanted to get myself a Floyd Rose. And then I found out a local music store in San Francisco, Don Weir's Music, had the third one ever built. So, as the story goes, Eddie got the first one, Neil Schon from Journey got the second one, and I went and traded a guitar for a Floyd Rose and a fret job, which everybody thought I was crazy because I traded a Les Paul Custom towards this new Floyd Rose. But I tell you, it's still on my guitar and it's still serving the purpose, and that's what got me around to coming up with some cool different whammy bar licks. When Eddie Van Halen was hitting the harmonics and doing the dive bombs, I figured I'll do something different and start hitting harmonics with the bar really low and raising it up real high and wiggling it around. And then one day I was banging on the guitar and I heard it made this like a cricket type sound, and I figured out when I flicked the end of the Floyd Rose tremolo bar, it made that sound. So I incorporated, these two ideas I mentioned into the ending of my "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" solo back in 1982.
Right, classic. And you've got at least the first two albums are AOR classics to me. Yeah, well, thanks. Those are the two big ones. "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" put us on the map, and luckily MTV had just come out with their 24/7 format, and having a content, and they played the crap out of us. They were playing "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" video 25 times a day, which really didn't hurt because it put a face to the music, and then we went on to do another 10 videos for MTV, and of course when we released the second record, Midnight Madness, we picked out "You Can Still Rock in America." Boom, that was a big hit with our anthem. And then we released this little old ballad called "Sister Christian." And that took us to the top of the top 5 hit on that. And management came back and said, well, I think it's time for you guys to start headlining. And that's right late 83, 84, whenever it was. That's when we decided to gear up for a headline tour. We got this whole big stage setup going, and a couple buses for the band crew and trucks with the equipment. I remember pulling into La Crosse, Wisconsin for our first show, and right when we pulled in on our bus to do sound check, up on the marquee was "Night Ranger tonight sold out." So wow, we started out with a bang, coming out of the box as a headliner. And that lasted us, all through the 80s, all over the world, going to Japan and Europe and just pretty much, making us, get out there, being a headline band and doing 250 shows a year. Talking to Brad Gillis from Night Ranger. Do you remember the first time you heard "Don't Tell Me You Love Me" on the radio? Oh, yes, I do. In fact, kind of a crazy story because I had the cassette of the record inside my truck at the time, and I'd be playing it, when I'd be driving around, because when you finish a record and you get it out there, you kind of listen to the stuff and see how it holds up. And one day I turned on my, turned up the radio and thinking my cassette was in my cassette player, and I heard "Don't Tell Me You Love Me," and I was going, yeah, cool, listen to it again. I looked down and the cassette wasn't in the player, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, this is the radio. So that was quite a little, wake-up call that, hey, man, you're on the radio, buddy. This is happening. Yeah, cool. We're with Brad Gillis from Night Ranger. You mentioned the Midnight Madness Tour. First time I saw you was at the Iowa Jam in 1984, and you actually were on the bill with Ozzy that day.
Yes, I remember that well. I still have the T-shirt. You know, I think that was, wasn't that Ted Nugent, too? And,
yep.
Yeah. Was Deep Purple on that one, too?
No, Accept was on it.
Accept.
And Motley Crue.
Yeah, I have. Motley Crue, yeah. No, yeah, I ran across that T-shirt last year at one point cleaning out stuff. So, yeah, that was kind of crazy. Yes, we did do a couple of shows with Ozzy.
Talking with Brad Gillis from Night Ranger. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to that, to your time with Ozzy.
Sure.
Speak of the Devil record, one of my favorite records. I listened to that incessantly when it came out. And going back, of course, you actually came in after Bernie Torme. What can you tell me about? Of course, he's passed away, unfortunately. But what can you tell me about Bernie, if anything, and kind of the cattle call that got you into Ozzy's band?
Well, that story would start out in 1981 when Ozzy came to the Oakland Coliseum here in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live, and everybody was touting Randy as the next Eddie Van Halen. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the records were starting to come out, and I was digging what was going on, and went and saw him live, and Randy blew me away. And I had started a club band called the Alameda All-Stars just to keep my chops up playing around the Bay Area. And we started doing a couple Ozzy tunes. We were doing Crazy Train and Flying High again. Mm-hmm. And I remember driving my truck with all my equipment up to one of these club gigs and hearing on the radio that Randy Rhoads passed away from a plane crash. And I pulled over. It's like, wow.
Shell shock.
Saw the guy, you know, a year before. And my dad being a pilot for 40 years and me flying with my father in Cessnas, you know, when he has private pilot's license, to, you know, for fun, and just thinking that it's such a tragedy when that happened. Now, I thought in the back of my mind, gee, I wonder who's going to take his place. No way I thought I would even be thought about. But going up to that gig that night, you know, we did a little tribute to Randy and played our Ozzy songs, and there was a guy in the audience. His name was Preston Thrall, and he said, "Hey, Brad, you know, I might have a line on possibly getting you an audition with Ozzy. Are you interested?" And I laughed. I said, "Yeah, put my name in the hat. You know, like that'll happen." But sure enough, you know, Preston Thrall told his brother Pat Thrall, who's a guitar player, played with Meatloaf and Pat Travers' band. So basically, Preston told Pat told Tommy Aldridge, who he'd played with in Pat Travers' band, mm-hmm. and Tommy, who was playing with Ozzy at that time, told Sharon. So, you know, a couple days later, early on a Sunday morning, I got that call from Sharon, you know, saying, you know, and I picked up the phone early in like 8 in the morning after playing the night before, and she's like, "Hey, hello, Bradley, this is Sharon Arden, manager with Ozzy Osbourne. We'd like to fly you out for an audition." I'm going, all right, who's screwing with me? You're waking me up, right? And you know, I actually said that to her. She goes, "Oh, Bradley, let me put Ozzy on the phone." I said, "Yeah, put Ozzy on the phone." And sure enough, this voice comes, "Hello, Bradley, this is Ozzy." And back then, they were in New York, and I'm in the Bay Area. Back then, when my father used to fly and call back from New York, there was a little delay on the phone in the 80s. And I heard that delay, and I thought, oh, my God, this is really Ozzy. Well, long story short, I flew out 2 days later. Bernie was with the band. My job was to learn all the material as fast as I could and to let them know when I was ready to jump in, as Bernie was just sitting in the interim before he flew back to England and doing a record with his band. So I would go to the shows and stand at the soundboard watching this amazing sold-out show every night with this huge castle on stage and watching Bernie play and all the pyro and everything that went on. And I'll never forget the sound man looking over at me laughing, going, "Yeah, good luck, buddy, you're up next." And, you know, you got to realize I was green. I'd been in a band called Rubicon with Jack Blades, but we did a couple of shows, but we did do that big show called Cal Jam 2 with Rubicon in March 18th, 1978. But that was the only big show I'd ever done. And So I would sit in my room during the day with a boombox and a live cassette with Randy on it and my guitar going through a little amp, and would practice all day. I learned by ear, so I was able to, play it back little by little, the solos and the riffs and chords, and kind of get it all together. And after 4 days, I told Sharon I was ready to go up. So, I remember Bernie was like, great, man, come on in and take over. I need to get home to do my record. So, I pull into Binghamton, New York for my first show, sold out 8,000 people to do sound check. I'd never played with the band. And out of the 18 songs I had to learn, we only did 7 at sound check, and Ozzy wasn't even there for sound check. So that night was my first night. So they, wow, talk about pressure. Anyway, I got through the show okay, and I screwed up on a tune called Revelation Mother Earth, which is a ballad, and halfway through it kicks into the chunking fast section. It came in too early, a verse and a chorus too early, and I remember Ozzy and Rudy and everybody just looking at me like, what are you doing? And I stopped playing and regained my composure and went back to the slow part and then the fast part where I was supposed to go, and finished out the set. And I'll never forget the next night. That night, people going, "Hey, Brad, you did a great job." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, I screwed up." They said, "Hey, for what you've gone through, with one sound check, never playing with the band, you did fine." And the next night, Sharon came up and said, "Bradley, you're doing a great job, but tonight, don't screw up." So that was the start of my tour with Ozzy.
And of course, there was a DVD, Speak of the Devil, but that was with mostly Ozzy material. So then fast forward to September, Ozzy decides, I'm not going to put out a live album with Randy. Randy's just passed. Somebody says, hey, let's record Black Sabbath songs.
Yes. Yeah, so that all came about, later in the year, in 1982, after we'd been touring for quite a few months. I think it was June is when we went in to do the live video that was on MTV, which was mainly Ozzy songs and a few Black Sabbath songs, and that came out rather well. And then later on is when they decided to do all old Black Sabbath material and record 2 nights at the Ritz in New York. So Rudy, Tommy, and I, being a 3-piece rhythm section, went into SIR Studios in New York and went over all the old Black Sabbath tunes for a couple days, and then went in and did the 2 nights. They ended up picking the best song from, one night or the other, the best songs, and then throwing that together for Speak of the Devil. Now, right about then is when we were getting a record deal with Night Ranger. This is like late 82. And we had finished our Dawn Patrol Night Ranger record. So at that time, it was really tough on the Ozzy band going through the death of Randy and touring for so long and all the emotions flying around. It was just crazy. Rudy Sarzo, the bass player, ended up, wanting to leave and go to his band, Quiet Riot, which just got a record deal. So he left the band, and a bit later I decided to leave and go back to Night Ranger, as Ozzy was going to take a long break. He didn't know what he was doing. He'd been through a lot, and I rolled the dice on that one. And sure enough, I think it was October 15th, 1982, there was 2 records released. One was Ozzy Osbourne Speak of the Devil live record, Black Sabbath, that I was on, and the Dawn Patrol Night Ranger record the same week. So it was, wow, I was blown away that was even possible to release 2 records. But there was a trade magazine, you might remember it, Mark. It was, what was that trade magazine called? Album Network.
Yeah.
It went around to all the radio stations, letting people know of the hottest songs in the country so radio stations could jump on what was popular. At the bottom of that were the 2 picks of the week that they had on each issue of Album Network. And there I was, the 2 picks of the week, Speak of the Devil and Dawn Patrol, which was, wow, I couldn't believe that was happening. But, all said and done, after those records released, jumping back in with Night Ranger, we went right back out on the road, opening for bands like Kiss, and I think we opened for Black Sabbath a little bit, when I was ZZ Top, Cheap Trick, everybody you can imagine. And that just got us right back on the road, 83 on. And then, of course, when Sister Christian was released, that's when they decided to, hey, let's have you guys headline. And so from late 83 on, we headlined all over the world with Night Ranger.
Talking with Brad Gillis. Brad, how about any new solo work? Would there be a possibility of another solo record from you?
Yeah, I'm just finishing that up now. It's got Gary Moon singing on it, who, when Jack left to go do the damn Yankees in the early 90s, Kelly and I got Gary Moon into the band as a bass player, lead singer. We did one record called Feeding Off the Mojo as Night Ranger. But I kept in touch with him, and I started doing the solo record a couple years back, and had Gary come up, and still got that great voice, man. And I finished everything up, and just finishing mixing everything, and hopefully that'll be out in the next 4 to 6 months. It's got Derek Sherenian, great keyboard player who's played with everybody. He's all over my record, and actually got Ross Valerie from Journey playing bass on a tune. So basically it's just a hard rockin' record, and I hadn't put out a solo record for 20 years, so I felt it was about time.
Funny story, the last time I saw Night Ranger, Gary Moon was in the band.
Wow.
That's how long it's been.
That would have been, early to mid-90s, yeah.
Yeah, 95 or something, Mankato, Minnesota. Yeah.
There you go. Very good.
Crazy, huh? I see this new record, A.T.B.P.O, is going to come out on vinyl.
Yeah, we have all different versions, different colored vinyls. They're doing, box sets of different records. I don't know what they're doing, but, the whole marketing these days, they try to get everything out there, and your avid collectors usually like to pick up on this stuff. So, so we're looking forward to that release in a little over a month. And, of course, we have the 2 videos that are out now, for Breakout and Bring It All Home to Me just came out last week. And so, those are the 2 videos off the record, and the rest of it all being released August 6th.
Yes, sir, and we're looking forward to having you at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake Friday, July 9th. Brad, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate the conversation.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. I'm looking forward to getting your town and kicking butt.
Fantastic. For Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, I'm Mark Skaar on 103.7 The Fox.